It has now been about a month since the Kaduna-bound train from Abuja was attacked by terrorists, leading to the death and injury of many people and the abduction of over 150 passengers. So far, a number of persons were released by the said terrorists. However, a bulk of the abductees still remain in captivity. Now, according to family members who spoke to Trust TV, some explained that despite their family members being held for many days in captivity, no demand for ransom payment has been made by the abductors. Now, Trust TV had also gathered that the terrorists are demanding a prisoner exchange and demand the government is yet to yield to despite pressures by families of victims, demanding that they dialogue with the assailants. The latest update about the abductees, however, are recent photographs released by the abductors as proof that they are well and unharmed. In a recent development, however, the Nigerian Senate also amended the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2013, prohibiting the payment of a ransom to kidnappers. Take a look at this report.
The Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, Opeyemi Bamidele, in his presentation, said the bill seeks to outlaw the payment of ransom to abductors, kidnappers, and terrorists for release of any person who was unwrongfully confined, imprisoned, or kidnapped. He assured that the amendment to the Terrorist Act will set standards and regulatory systems intended to prevent terrorist groups from laundering money through the banking system and other financial networks.
The need to comprehensively review the Terrorism Prevention Act arose from the unfavorable ratings of Financial Act Task Force recommendations of Nigeria's Mutual Evaluation Report and consequent placement of Nigeria in FACT's international cooperation and review group process with its impending sanctions on Nigeria's economy.
The Senate President Ahmed Lawa, in his remarks after the bill was passed, said the bill, when signed into law, will complement the federal government's efforts in the fight against insecurity.
A bill for an act to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 and for other matters connected thereto 2022 third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Well, congratulations to the Senate for passing this very, very important bill on terrorism. And it is our belief here in the Senate that this bill, by the time signed into an act by Mr. President, will enhance the efforts of this government in the fight against terrorism, kidnapping, and other associated and related vices.
The bill was passed by the chamber after it scaled through third reading on the floor. In the meantime, the Senate has adjourned plenary till 10th of May for the Eid al-Fitr Salah holiday.
There you go. Now joining us in the studio to discuss the plight of the adopted rail passengers still in captivity and the possible way forward is no other than a friend of the house and a face that I'm sure every viewer of this station is quite familiar with by this time. And I'm talking about no other than Professor Usman Aliu, a former Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme and a member of the Northern Elders Forum. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the studio again, Professor.
Thank you, Sandy. The name is Usman Yusuf.
That's right. Professor Usman Yusuf, I beg your pardon.
Right.
At the risk of deviating from the subject matter this morning, I noticed that when you came in, you took quite an interest on the cover page of the Daily Trust, especially on the story of how the ruling party, is battling with having its members comply with its own internal rule, which seemed to also be an INEC amendment recently that requires that a number of persons that have shown interest in political positions should take a back step away from their position and concentrate on what they intend to pursue. I would like your thoughts on what is happening.
Yes, when I came in, I was looking at the headlines of Daily Trust. I'm not a big fan of our politicians. I really am, and I've said it many times. Why? Because they've not served us well. we that brought them into office, and they are disconnected from the realities of our sufferings.
True.
I was in secondary school when President Shagari came. The ministers left. So what more are they waiting for, these ministers?
Is it a moral question?
It's common sense. I mean, forget the law, it's common sense. Mr. President, how can these ministers function effectively and do their jobs that you've assigned to them when they are running around from pillar to pole asking people to vote for them? It's simply common sense. Now they've literally left him like a lame duck president. He will look for them, they will be somewhere. So it's just common sense. You want to do this, drop your official responsibility and go face what you're doing.
Prof, you have functioned at the highest level as far as this country is concerned. And so my question would be, why is it difficult to do this? Yes, you said it's common sense, but why is it such a difficult decision to take?
I mean, the decision, they serve at the pleasure of the president. So the president tell them, you want to contest? Leave. Many governors have said that. So they're just looking at the body language of the president and he lets them do whatever they want to do. So how many members of the cabinet are running around looking for offices? So who is manning the shops? Who is manning the ministries where you are? It is just common sense that they should leave and let the president get somebody who will do the job for him. They are not likely to, they cannot walk and chew gum. They cannot do these two jobs. So for the sake of God, for the sake of this country, they should vacate their offices and the president gets somebody who will help him do this job. So far as it is, they've been on the table, on this desk of these jobs, and they're not doing well, and they want to do something else. It's just simple common sense, and the president needs to ask them to leave.
Well, now to stay on the crux of our discussion this morning. Now, following the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act barring ransom payment, what effect would this have, on the families of those that have been abducted?
Right. So they should talk to the families and tell them, or if someone of yours is taken, don't pay. And ask them, they need to give them the Quran or the Bible to swear that if your relative is taken, you will do whatever it takes. You will sell your kidney to get your relative out. And the person is taken, is abducted because of failure of government. Instead of you to do the right thing, at this point in time when it is very sensitive, when we have our people in the forest, especially these people, when we have a new threat, the new threat is the marriage between Boko Haram and bandits, you are trying to escalate the situation by sitting in Abuja and talking gibberish. You want to do this? Is this time to do it? When our people are there and their lives are threatened, and the people that say, we don't want money, the government knows what, these are different sets of people. Again, common sense that I see lacking. They're sitting there, and these people in the forest, they listen to them. They have Facebook, they have all of this. So are you daring us? Oh, you and I, the educated, the right thing to do, this is a wonderful bill. But to them, you are saying, so it's common sense that is lacking all through our politics. They just want to tick, oh, we've done this. Whereas the thing they should do, if you are representing Kaduna, Regina, you should meet with these families.
Talking about meeting with the families, Prof, a fortnight ago we saw a man in Brooklyn, in New York, attack the subway. And on the hour, we saw every responsible government functionary brief the people about what updates have been made, whether it is in pursuit of the person who committed the crime, or with treating those who have been attacked, or with measures to prevent a similar attack going forward. We saw all kinds of people, from the mayor to the governor to the sheriff chiefs and all of that. Bringing that to contextualizing that scenario within our own context. Have we behaved correctly since these people were adopted? We have seen the minister in charge of this space announce a political ambition and he has gone haywire. We have seen largely trading of blames, Have we behaved responsibly as a state, whether to those who have been kidnapped or even the family that are traumatized, that are looking forward to a day that their loved ones return? What else could we have done?
All right. A lot. I mean, a responsible government would have done the right thing. Lived in the United States longer than I've lived here. You don't live in the United States to have common decency. If something happens to the people you're governing, is to reach out to them, give them a hug, and shed their tears, and wipe away their tears. Today is 30 days since this thing happened. I am not expecting the uniformed services to address the nation. By the uniformed services, the police or the military, or the uniformed services to tell us, or to even meet with the family. That is not the responsibility of uniformed services. This is a democracy. Mm-hmm. We voted for the governors, we voted for the president, and the president appointed people to help him do job. They are the ones we expect to address the nation, or at least meet with the families. We're having to beg them to meet with these families. We have met with these families. We have had heartbreaking stories from these families. We are not in government. We reached out. We have people from a child from the age of 4 to a sick grandmother who is diabetic, on medication, came back from medical checkup, 85. She's amongst them. We have people that have sustained that injury. We have people requiring daily medications for hypertension, for diabetes, for cancer. We have a pregnant woman that is reported to have delivered in the forest. We have the aged. We have women. And yet our politicians do not have the common sense in the month of Ramadan to reach out to these families and listen. Just listen. Whose responsibility is it? This accident or this thing happened in the territory of Kaduna State. The first responsibility falls on the government of Kaduna State to listen to these families. Then whose ministry? Rotimi Amechi, the Minister of Transportation. These abductees were in the carriage of the federal government, supervised by him. If this accident was in an airline, the airline will take responsibility. On the manifest of that train, 362 tickets were sold. Inside the train, there were reported to be 900 and something passengers, 3 times the number of tickets. This is ticket racketeering. This same terrorist attempted blowing up this rail line October last year.
That's right.
What lesson has the government learned on what efforts were put to prevent this thing from happening? The Minister of Transportation, whose turf this thing happened, the next day was jumping around in Port Harcourt like Usain Bolt, declaring presidency. For goodness sake, what manner of men are our leaders? What manner of men? No compassion. In the month of Ramadan, our people are living out there from the age of 4, a kid to the age of 4, to a grandmother, a sick grandmother, diabetic, 85. The rain, the sun, mosquitoes. And the leadership is, we do not expect the government to come and tell us what they are discussing, if they are discussing anything with the abductors. But at least have the decency to listen to the families. We've been meeting with them, giving them hope, and trying to reach out. We are not in government, but it's our duty and responsibility to do our part. So, I'm really amazed, and this is the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan teaches us to fast, to feel how those that do not have feel. And yet our leaders, 4 years ago, Mr. President, during the month of Ramadan, swore with the Quran that he's going to protect, secure this country and protect our lives. He kneels in the middle of the night, in the wee hours of the night, sit down and say, have I done that which I swore with the Quran? And all these ministers.
Prof, we're also seeing that some stakeholders are saying that we need foreign aid, to rescue the train, those that were abducted on that train. Do we really need that?
We need mercenaries? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the person that started is the governor of Kaduna State, saying, he said it, it's there, that if the military does not do this thing, he will mobilize the northern governors to bring mercenaries. And I said, he has a degree in law. There's this thing called ultra vires, doing that which you do not have any authority to do that. He knows that. No governor has that authority to do that. So who was he trying to impress? That's grandstanding. It is the prerogative of the commander-in-chief, the president and commander-in-chief, to do that. But it's not going to help. It's not.
But Prof, if we take away the fact that he hasn't the capacity to do that, have we come to a point as a country where we should be looking forward to mercenaries to do this? Because we keep hearing from the military, they keep saying, we are on top of the situation. We are on top of this. We have degraded these people. They have no capacity to carry a fantastic attack. They cannot do this. But every time this attack happens, it sort of magnifies what had happened before. The sophistication, the coordination, the swift with which this will happen. Now the alliance. Do we seem to be on top of this situation? Do we honestly, as a country, are we honestly at that point, at that principle where we should be looking at bringing in mercenaries?
Right. So I've had the Minister of Information saying we're on top of this. I mean, Minister Elijah Mohammed is a man of faith. I know that. This is the month of Ramadan. Say that which is true. They're not on top of it. This is the honest truth. If we're on top of this, we won't be in this where we are. This is the honest truth. The honest truth is, how many are these bandits? Okay? But our military, I'm not standing forth for the military. Our military is overstretched, deployed in 34 out of 36 states in the country.
Plus the FCT.
What's their number? What's the equipment they have? We do not have boots on the ground, enough boots on the ground to do this war. During the twilight years of President Jonathan, he brought mercenaries to help with Boko Haram. And they did some good things, I was told. Why? Because Boko Haram, essentially, they were quarantined in Sambisa forest. But here you have bandits all across the land. All across the forest, they own this forest. They know the forest is their territory. So what a mercenary is going to do? It's not a static army. It's a small, mobile army everywhere. So the nature of the conflict is different. The terrain is different. So I asked myself, in the 7 years that this government has been here, why have they not trained their military to do this? To do what they're asking mercenaries to come and do. Oh, buy a night goggle, train snipers. Oh, why haven't we done that? So it's a situation where we cannot win this war. And I've said it severally. Banditry, I know that I was in the front, I had the privilege of being on the front row seat with Sheikh Dr. Ahmed Gumi. We went to 8 states into the forest to meet these war commanders and many other of the stakeholders too. And gradually as I got involved, I am clear in my mind that there's a definite role for the military. But there's not going to be a military solution to banditry in Nigeria, none. If anybody tells you there's going to be a military solution, he either doesn't know or he knows and he's been dishonest. The role of the military is to provide an enabling environment for dialogue to happen. The military did not bring this mess. This mess was brought about by politicians. The military did not bring along Boko Haram. The military did not bring along IPOP. This is insecurity you see anywhere in this country is a result of twin evils, corruption and bad governance. Corruption and bad governance. The military is called in to clean up after the mess of politicians.
So Nigerians know that you have had the privilege, like you have rightly mentioned here, of going into the turf alongside with Dr. Sheikh Gumi. And in your opening statement, you also said, the bandits have said, it's not about the money. The government know what they want. Do you by any chance understand what that language means? What do they want exactly?
Right, Sunday, and this is a new thing. The ragtag bandits we saw, this is not the way they talk. The ragtag bandits, they catch and they get the money and they run into the forest. And I wrote it in the paper clearly from the day it happened. And even before it happened, all these 2 years, Sheikh Gumi used to speak to me with a sense of urgency. Usman, we need to get to these bandits before Boko Haram gets to them with their twisted religious ideology. Once you have that, then we're in trouble. And the moment this train accident happened, on day one, we knew that marriage has come. That is the marriage between these bandits and any of the cousins of this Boko Haram, either Boko Haram, ISWAP, Ansaru, Darussalam, or any of those other crazy terrorist kindred spirits. We saw that, and how the pointers were there. The first pointer was using explosives. Bandits don't use explosives. And the audacity of the attack. Number 2, when they went into the carriage, they were shouting religious incantations. Bandits don't do that. Number 3, passengers, people told us, intelligence, that those that were abducted were conveyed in buses. Bandits don't need buses. They know the terrain.
True.
And this other thing, the first person that was released, they were saying, oh, we are releasing him on compassionate ground. They don't do that. And you could hear the dialect. These are not Fulanis in the forest. But there's, whoever they are, Ansaru, Darussalam, Boko Haram, or ISWAP, could not have operated without a marriage with bandits. Remember, bandits do not have a unified leadership. If they have an alliance with a strategic bandit that is controlling that neighborhood, then that alliance, because Boko Haram, they're essentially city folks in the forest. But bandits, that's their homeland. From here to Morocco, from here to Central African Republic, they know the terrain. Boko Haram don't. So that is the advantage. The other advantage that ISWAP have is they come in with their international connection, international funding, and this twisted religious ideology. You're mixing it with these fearless bandits that know the terrain. Is going to be a lethal security challenge to this country, worse than the Taliban in Afghanistan or worse than Al-Shabaab. The federal government and the security agencies need to take this seriously and work to make sure they break this and handle insecurity in our land.
Well, from your explanation, it seems like the issue of banditry in Nigeria is evolving with time. Now, Where do we go from here? Because it looks like we have quite a lot of work to do, you know,
A
to
lot
curb this
of work,
endeavor.
Zainab. You said it right. So every day of our lives, when I came back to this country, we didn't have this. Before 2014, we didn't have this. I could drive from Abuja to straight to Kaduna, where I come from. Well, now you can't even go from Kaduna to Abuja. A stretch of 160 kilometers has become highway to hell. And the next day after this audacious train attack, they blocked this highway, Abuja-Kaduna highway.
Yeah.
That is the audacity to show you that we own the place. The whole idea is they've quarantined Kaduna now by rail, by road,
Right.
and they attempted to breach their way. This is the modus operandi of ISWAP. These bandits do not care about infrastructure. Boko Haram ISWAP, Nigerians may not know, for the last 15, 16 months, the city of Maiduguri has been without electricity because transmission line has been blown up into Maiduguri by Boko Haram ISWAP. It was done, they blew it up again. So this is the modus operandi of Boko Haram ISWAP, blowing up infrastructure. And we are there. And once Kaduna is the most strategic town in the north, serving 9 states as a gateway into Abuja and serving Niger Republic. So you've isolated, you've quarantined. Take a census of how many Nigerians now, even from Abuja, have stopped going to Kaduna because of this. So we are in more serious trouble today than we were a month ago. And it's been evolving for the worse. The federal government needs to look at avenues of, explore all avenues, the connected and the non-connected. All of them must come simultaneously. The connected will not do it alone. The non-connected will not do it alone. And I've said all stakeholders must be involved, especially stakeholders that live with the people. The most important stakeholders are the traditional rulers, the clerics, and the elders in the community that the government has not been engaging well.
Yeah, talking about engagement, taking it up from where you stopped. Listening to you do some of those psychoanalysis, I remember we talked about a number of them here and how swift these operations have gone on unhindered. What should we be doing? You talked about talking to stakeholders. What are we, where are we, in all of this? And what should we be doing differently for the time that is left in the life of this administration? Because you cannot isolate what has happened from all of the pockets of attack to school children. The North now has become the most dangerous place for children to be in school. And so you can imagine if you add that number to the out of school, children, and the government, it's in the media complaining about the delay in taking delivery of the Tucanos. And one wonders what it had done with the Tucanos in the last 12 or so months, that it has taken delivery of them. How should we coordinate this approach you talked about going forward, the kinetic and the non-kinetic? Should it be just a government-led initiative? How far has the group like yours gone with regards to what you found out, what needs to be done, and relating that with government?
Right. And Sunday, the reason we went, nobody in government sent us to do that. We went not at the behest of any government. And we were not the first to have engaged them. This is the honest truth. Each of the 6 geopolitical zones in this country are on fire. They have their unique security challenges. And if we expect the government to be able to solve all of these problems, we're not getting there. What the military is essentially doing now is internal policing. This is not what they are trained to do. This is not the job of the military. This is the job of the police. Internal policing. It's what they're putting up fires in Basari, in this place, overstretched. The government needs to open its eyes. The approach has always been military, military, military. We talk to them, we'll speak to them in the language they understand. We'll do this, we'll do this. Well, they've been talking to us in languages we do not understand. So the federal government needs to step back In the little time that is left, all the attention has been infrastructure, 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 and taking its eyes off the real thing. The primary responsibility of government, constitutional responsibility of government is to secure us, not to build roads or bridges. There were no roads or high bridges when we were young. We were secure. The government invested in us. That's why we were able to become productive citizens. But now they've been telling for the last 7 years, whoever it is, these contractor ministers that he has around him, telling him infrastructure is more important than anything else. Well, we have seen the most important transportation infrastructure in the north is this railroad from Kaduna to Abuja. Now is there laying on its side. Peace is enduring. Leadership must listen to the people. Government all across, from the state to the federal, must govern with the milk of human kindness. I don't see that shown by no government agency, civil. I don't know, military. It's not the responsibility of the military to meet with them. Civil government agencies that have sat down and listened to this family. Kaduna State government should have been the first to listen. It happened in there tough. The Minister of Transportation and the Minister of Transportation, it happened under his watch, under his ministry.
He would claim that he showed up in the hospital and paid condolences to the injured victims, perhaps.
So, Sunday, don't annoy me this morning. I'm sure that's not your intention, but you get the point. For goodness sake, there are relatives there running all over the place. We were able to gather them. From Kaduna to Abuja, they all came. We listened. And they tell us we give them hope. We're not in government. We don't have guns. But just to listen. Do we have to beg this government? Do we have to beg the minister, the governor of Kaduna State to listen? Do we have to beg the Minister of Transportation to listen? Do we have to beg the National Security Advisor to the President to listen? Do we have to beg the Minister of Defense or Minister of Police Affairs? I do not expect the military, uniform services to be the ones engaged in doing this. Civilian appointees of the President and the Chief Executive of Kaduna State, it is their responsibility to listen. We listen. We send them to clerics to listen to them, to pray for them. This thing, I have no doubt in my mind, is just a matter of time. The loved ones will be home. The government needs to leave no stone unturned to make sure that our people are out safely and engage this family. Whatever they are doing quietly, we don't expect them to broadcast to us. But we pray. Everybody should spare a prayer for the families, for these victims in the forest.
Oh, you know, Prof, in the course of our discussion, you talked about engaging with traditional leaders. And just recently, we also seen that 2 Zamfara emirs have been deposed, over banditry. What does that actually tell us about actually engaging these people?
Yeah,
in the fight?
Zainab, Zamfara is near and dear to me because that's where I spent my formative years. That's where I went to secondary school, government secondary school, so. And also for Sheikh Gumi, that is ancestral home. And that is the nidus. That is the center of this cancer called banditry that has affected every part of this country. That is it. So if we do not ask ourselves questions, that how did Zamfara become like this? Why? How did we get here? The most important thing in Zamfara is bad governance. Politicians started this. They know that. From 1999 till date, 70% of all bandits in this country will trace their roots to Zamfara. 70% of all bandits. We were in Zamfara, we spent a week in Zamfara. We went all over. We slept in Gumi, we went to Shinkafi, we went to see Turuji, Halilu, Bella Subud. We saw all of them. And you could see poverty all over. Without injustice, with poverty, with out-of-school children, you will never have peace in this land. So, is the politics in Zamfara? Zamfara is a classical case of bad governance and corruption. And that's why you're getting this. If I was the president of this country, the first thing, if you don't handle Zamfara, you're just doing cosmetics. You need to sort out Zamfara. Zamfara is where the problem is. And unfortunately, because we know this is going to get worse as 2023 draws closer, because the politicians are going to be involved in all of this, and they will be using these bandits for this. So the president must open his eyes. If I was the president, I would lock down Zamfara from day one, sort it out, lock it down, put a military administrator there, and sort Zamfara out. You don't sort Zamfara out, banditry will never stop. Zamfara is a mess.
But talking about sorting Zamfara, today we have seen that they've expanded their scope. Just this morning, the communities that were dislodged in Niger were saying the terrorists have moved into their houses while they are taking shade at the IDP. About 6 local governments in Niger states have come under direct control of these persons. That much I'm sure you know. So is it about sorting Zamfara alone, or having some kind of program that arrests each of these critical points at the same time? And how far can we do that?
You see now, Kaduna and Zamfara, there was a report in Daily Trust a few days ago. The deaths in Kaduna and Niger State.
Yes.
These 2 states are now worse than Zamfara. Niger State is essentially becoming an annex for Boko Haram ISWAP. They're planting their flags. How did we get here? I'm one of the biggest critics of this president, but you have to give it to him. He's done very well, and the military in containing Boko Haram. They were occupying many local governments, but they did well. But it seemed and looked like they took their eyes off the ball. They are planting their flags in Niger State. Niger is a mess.
It is.
And they are penetrating into the northwest. The biggest reason one would ask himself, over the last 13, 14 years that Boko Haram has been around, why have they not been able to penetrate into the northwest? The largest population zone in this country. It wasn't because of lack of trying, or it wasn't because they didn't want to, but it was because of the vigorous, proactive work of traditional rulers and clerics in this zone over the last 13 years, preaching to Muslim faithful not to. But here we are now, they've gotten access with this alliance where they have coveted for the last 13 years. So we need to wake up. Banditry, I've said it again and again, is a social problem, not a military problem. We are continuing to increase and militarize it some more. They are realizing there's money now. What do they do with the 100 million? They go across the border in Niger and buy arms. And drugs come from the south. So here you are, you have a lethal, fearless child soldiers that know the terrain, being fed arms from the north, Niger, drugs from the south. If you do not break this chain, you can throw all the Tucano bombs you want, you won't solve the problem. Federal government needs to be holistic in its approach. Listen to everybody. But before we go, I want the federal government to govern with the milk of human kindness. Listen to the families of these victims. We hear their stories, they're shedding tears. We give them hope by just sitting and listening to them. What does it take for the government to do that? It is vulgar for these ministers to be seen running around wanting to be president. It is arrogance of power. We voted you in, you don't care about our sufferings. For goodness sake, this is Ramadan. Our people are out there from the age of 4 to the sickly 85-year-old grandmother. Mr. President and the First Lady, call them in. Just like you gave dinner to politicians at the villa. Call them in, listen to them. At least you listen to the families of Chibok girls.
Yes.
Have you lost it the last 7 years? You have a year to go.
Talking about that, we started on a political dimension, and I would like, Prof, before we let you go, to still situate this conversation around politics, because as you identify in your opening statement, you said the fulcrum of this problem, sits with leadership, and we are at that point, at that transition point again. where we would hand over this country, to another set of leaders, perhaps leaders who would oversee how this problem eventually gets resolved, but obviously maybe not in the life of this administration. But I want to draw your attention to a quote in the recent intervention of one of your own, Bishop Kuka, where he said, "Whoever wants to govern us must illustrate that he or she understands what has turned our nation into a national hospital and show us plans for our discharge from this horror." You have seen a number of the candidates that have indicated interest to hold the most important office in this country. Do you think, from their utterances, from the way they have gone about campaigning, from the things that they have said, that they understand the urgency of the problem? Do they look like the messiahs in the waiting?
No. And so Sunday, I've been asked this before, and I say when I look at the field, I raise my hands in prayers. That God Almighty give us a leader that is compassionate enough to lead us with a heart. I don't see that. There's nobody in this APC government that will come to us and tell us to vote for him. Yes, they will buy their 100 million naira phone.
Interesting.
But they have a record of 8 years that we will interrogate when the time comes. We will ask. They came on a tripod of 3. Fellow Nigerians, are we safer today than we were in 2014? They came on security, correct? Another thing they came, economy. Is our naira going further today than it was before? 2014, 50 kilograms of rice was 7,000 naira. Now it's hitting 40,000. Rice is out of the reach of the common man. I get calls from my folks, from my old classmates for 1,000 naira, 500 naira. You go to villages, I know I'm from Kaduna State, and it's a reflection of many of the villages.
Absolutely.
You bring out 1,000 naira, go to the village square and ask for a change. Nobody can give you change because nobody has it. We are less safe than we were when this government came. We are poorer than we were when this government came. Corruption is blossoming a lot more than when this government came. So they have a record. We will interrogate. I will ask them to. And there is Minister of Education and Minister of Labor.
Productivity.
So Minister of Education, you have the audacity, and Labor. You guys have the audacity to want to lead us when our children are home from ASU strike. You've not solved this ASU strike. What are you coming to tell parents? What are you going to do? So it's arrogance of power that has covered their faces and has blinded their hearts. Leadership is not a joke. The burden of leadership, if you know those scriptures, the burden that it puts on a leader, nobody will scramble to go and buy 100 million. They will be asked on that day that is certain to account for every life lost, every blood shed, every woman raped, every child that goes hungry, every cattle that is rustled. On that day that is certain, during their stewardship. Leadership is not a joke. They think it is Nollywood or Kannywood, running around dancing on stages when they are not connected with the sufferings of our people. So Nigerians, choose wisely. I tell youth wherever I go in this country, you have what it takes to change. You don't have AK-47 or AK-49. Your PVC is more powerful than your AK-47 or AK-49. Use your PVC to flush bandits out of government.
Flushing bandit out of government. It's a way to end this conversation with Professor, who has taken us through, so much. You would wonder whether he has the singular responsibility to analyze what has happened. Listening to Prof, you talk about these issues, dissect these issues in the manner that he has done. We want to thank you for finding time to come to the studio again, and we hope that when we call on you, Again, next time you would oblige us the opportunity. I had mentioned earlier when he came in that Prof is not doing badly at all for his age. Maybe one of these days the discussion would not be about the bandits and leadership. It will be Prof giving us the resume to look like him as we grow, as we aspire to get to your age. Once again, thank you very much for coming, and have you a very fruitful and productive day.
Thank you very much.